Hello there, I'm Mr. Math Guy. Today we're going to be taking a look at a 10-minute video on radical equations. Let's take a look at this first example. The square root of 4x minus 8 is equal to the square root of x plus 1. Now, since both sides are just square roots, the way that we can get a square root is we can square a square root and it gets rid of it. Now, if you square the whole side, as long as you do it to both sides, then that's okay to do. Got to do the same thing to both sides of an equation. So to square a square root just gets rid of the square root, so you're left with 4x minus 8 is equal to x plus 1. And now just get your x on the same side and take your constant to the other side, and we get 3x is equal to 9. Divide by 3, and so x is equal to 3. You can always plug this in, substitute it to see if it works. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 minus 8 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2, so the left side is 2. 3 plus 1 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So 2 equals 2. So x equals 3 is the answer for this first example. In this next problem, we have the square root of x minus 3 is equal to the square root of x minus 9. Now notice on the left side, the minus 3 is not under the radical. So if we square the right side, it would get rid of the radical and just leave me with x minus 9. However, we can't just square a part. We can't just square the square root of x. We have to square the entire side, which means that we probably should just rewrite it as two binomials, square root of x minus 3 and the square root of x minus 3, and we would FOIL. So first, square root of x times the square root of x is x. And then outside, that's negative 3 square root of x. And inside is another negative 3 square root of x, which is negative 6 square root of x. And then last, negative times negative is positive, and 3 times 3 is 9. Now, let's get our x's together. So let's move this x to the left side. And that cancels. And let's take this 9 to this side. So we have negative 6 square root of x is equal to negative 18. Now, this is being multiplied, so we can divide by negative 6, try and get the x by itself. So we get the square root of x is equal to 3. Now, we would square both sides again, and when you do that, you get x is equal to 9. X is equal to 9. Let's take a look at another problem. This one we have the square root of x plus 3 minus 1, which is not under the radical, is equal to the square root of x minus 6. Again, we're going to square both sides. So this one we can't just square the square root part, you have to square the entire side. So we probably want to write this out as the square root of x plus 3 minus 1. And we got two of them. Square root of x plus 3 minus 1 is equal to just x minus 6. Now, we would FOIL, first outer inner last, this times this. That's just going to get rid of the square root. So we're just left with x plus 3. And then outside, we got negative 1 of those. And then inside, another negative 1. So we got negative 2 of those, square roots of x plus 3's. And then last, we have plus 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1, equals x minus 6. Now, let's get the x's on the same side, so they're going to cancel there. And I also see that we have a 3 plus a 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. So let's subtract 4. That would be all of that, so subtract 4 on this side. So I got negative 2 square root of x plus 3 is equal to negative 10. Now, since this is being multiplied by negative 2, let's divide by negative 2. And so I have the square root of x plus 3 is equal to 5. Again, to get rid of a square root, you simply square the entire side. So that gets rid of the square root, so x plus 3 is equal to 25. Now, lastly, we subtract 3 from both sides, and we get x is equal to 22. X equals 22. And it's always a good idea to substitute it back in to make sure it works, but this one does. Let's take a look at another example. This time we have 2 cube root of y plus 5 plus 18 equals 22. Again, we're trying to solve for y, so we're trying to get y by itself. So the first thing that I can see is, let's subtract this 18 from both sides. That gives me 2 times the cube root of y plus 5 is equal to 4. And now it's 2 times that radical, so let's divide by 2. So I get the cube root of y plus 5 is equal to 2. Now, to get rid of a square root, you square it. So to get rid of a cube root, you want to cube. And you have to cube both sides. So the cube root of something cubed is just what's left under, the radicand. So you got y plus 5 is equal to 2 cubed is 8. Subtract 5 from both sides, and we get y is equal to 3. Y is equal to 3. Let's take a look at another example. We have x plus 3 to the 2/5 power is equal to 9. Now, we're trying to get x by itself, and this is a fractional exponent, so if I could get that to the first power, then I would have just x plus 3. So if I multiply, or not multiply, but if I raise this to the 5/2 power, when you have a power on a power, you multiply, and so those things just cancel, and I have x plus 3 to the first power, or just x plus 3. But if you do something to one side, you must do it to the other side. So I need to raise this to the 5 power. So this is 9 to the 5 power. Now, I don't know what 9 to the 5 power is without using a calculator, but I can convert it to be the square root of 9 to the 5th power. Remember, fractional exponents are the same thing as the radical, so 5/2. And so you can say, well, some of these 9s will pull out. By the way, when you take the square root of something, it's actually plus or minus. So you got 2 9s that could come out. 5 divided by 2 is 2, with 1 left over. We're at a 9. All right. Now, because this is the square root of this, it's going to be a plus and minus of whatever we get here. So this is going to be x plus 3 is equal to 81 times 3. Square root of 9 is 3. 9 squared is 81. So x plus 3 is equal to 243. Or x plus 3 could equal negative 243. Because when you take the square roots, remember, the square root of anything, we'll just say 9, it is actually plus or negative 3. So you got to keep that in your head when you're working with these problems. So subtract 3 from this one, and x is equal to 240. Alright, there's one answer. And then the other one, subtract 3, and you get x is equal to negative 246. Now, anytime that you work with square roots and things of this nature, you probably should plug these numbers back into the original equation, because sometimes you might get something called an extraneous solution, which means you got an answer, but when you plug it back in, it really doesn't work. So you can plug those in. I'm not going to for lack of time, but both of these answers do solve this solution for x. Alright, this problem is very similar to the last one. We got something raised to an exponent, so I want to get that raised to the first power by multiplying, by raising it to the reciprocal. This would all cancel, leaving me with just 3c minus 1. But if you do something to one side, you got to do it to the other. So I need to raise this to the 5/4 power, which when you convert it would be the 4th root of 16 to the 5th power. Now, the 4th root is actually plus or minus, so keep that in your mind. 1/16 can come out, and 1/16 stays underneath. Now, the 4th root of 16 is just 2, so you have 32. And since it was an even root, it's plus or minus. So plus 32 minus 32. Solving C for both, you can see the answer. Thank you, and God bless.